I've just discovered the most ghoulish antiques I have ever seen. Right behind me, there's another one and two over there. I've never seen these things in the flesh, well, probably the wrong terminology to use, before, but let me tell you what they are, and let me know what you think about them. Now this bizarre looking metal contraption, cage if you like, it's called a mortsafe, and it dates to the 18th century or early part of the 19th century. So it's been in this graveyard in Yorkshire for around 2.5 centuries. Now these contraptions go back to the period of the body snatchers, or as these people were known at the time, the Resurrectionists. A grand job title for someone who was effectively a grave robber and a dealer in dead bodies. I really can't begin to tell you how unusual this is, and just to repeat, I've never seen a mortsafe ever before, only ever seen them online or read about them in books, and to find 3 here in this exceptionally rural location in North Yorkshire. I don't really want to tell you where it is, I think for obvious reasons, but just get a feel for the place. Let's walk towards another one. Now, the mortsafes themselves were designed to keep the resurrectionists out, made specifically to lock dead bodies underground, not as some have thought to keep the bodies from rising out of the ground like a zombie, but to keep the living from stealing the dead bodies and selling them. And let me tell you, this was a very good trade. The Resurrectionists' clients were doctors and medical students, all with money, who were, by their very nature, interested in the workings of the human body. And they were willing to pay handsomely for fresh bodies so they could dissect, discover, research, and improve their knowledge. Bodies for experimentation, you see, were needed if the advances in medicine were to continue, which it did throughout the Georgian period. The problem was, though, that no one was willing to leave their body to science and medicine after their death. The very idea was horrific to just about everyone, which is why the body snatchers made such a good living and why relatives of the recently departed employed all sorts of measures to protect the recently buried as best they could. And it was really the relatives who had to protect the bodies, because the authorities simply turned a blind eye to the trade in stolen bodies. They knew the doctors needed them, and strictly speaking, dealing in dead bodies was not actually illegal, and therefore neither was stealing them, because it was a grey area, because in law, dead bodies didn't officially belong to anyone. Meaning families had to stand guard overnight or pay watchmen to chase off would-be body snatchers. Now, they needed to do this for maybe a couple of weeks, just long enough for the body to deteriorate enough to be of no value to the doctors. Now, this was expensive, of course, and so a cheaper option was to fit a mortsafe. But the practice of using mortsafes died out about 200 years ago, which again reaffirms the fact that these things are so incredibly unusual. You see, the Resurrectionists themselves were put out of business by the early part of the 19th century when the British government passed laws allowing doctors to access the bodies of executed criminals, waifs and strays, and the dead from the workhouses. So yes, mind-boggling this to me, to find these original mortsafes still in existence here in rural North Yorkshire is really quite something. Of course, the vast majority were disposed of a couple of hundred years ago. Why wouldn't they be? They were a constant reminder of a dark and dismal time that people really didn't want to be reminded of. Now, what about value? Value-wise, do these things, these mortsafes, actually have a value? I don't know. I've never seen one for sale. I suppose they probably do. But would you have one? Should they be removed from graveyards like this? I don't think so.